What are we doing today? AHC. That's what we're doing. I've done some of this before, so this is a little out of order as far as we're filming, but we're going to go through AHC today. I'm going to show you how to measure it, adjust it, and then check the healthier globes, or the spheres, if you will. Let's learn about AHC. Enjoy. Alright, here's the deal. I've already gone through this when I first bought the car. So I bought the car and then I went through measure, adjusting, and checked the globes. But that was before I had all the armor installed. So now we've got front bumper, rear bumper, skid plates, sliders. I've got the max tracks on the back. I've got a battery, an air compressor, a winch, all kinds of extra weight. And we haven't really tuned the AHC since then. I just threw it on and it was good enough, so I ran with it. I cranked the torsion bars a little bit, but we just kind of ran with it because it's fine. AHC is totally fine with extra weight. We're going to go through that. But don't be scared of AHC. It's a really robust system. No need to be scared of it. We're going to go through why. So, like I said, we've already done this once before. We're going to do it again, though. We have to do it again because we've changed the weight in the car. So, this is a basic little check sheet or checklist on the whiteboard for me, just as a visual indicator as I go through filming this. Don't mind the mess. It's messy. It's messy. But here you go. So I made a little cheat sheet, and I'll provide this in the description and on the website, and on the forum and everywhere else, Instagram and everywhere. But anyway, this will walk you through what I think should be done. And I took notes from a bunch of users on I Hate Mud. Big shout out to Pato. If I ever meet that guy, I think I owe him a few beers. But I took what I've learned about the system from the manual and then from all the contributors on the forums and put it into what I think is a good sequential process. This is what you should do. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, through 7. So this is what I think works. I'm going to walk through it right now. We're going to live through this process and show you exactly what it takes to do. And hopefully anybody that just bought an LX can feel comfortable doing this. You don't need to be a master mechanic. It seems complicated. It is not at all. It's very simple, very straightforward. All you need is a laptop with TechStream, a 30mm wrench, and a measuring tape, and a couple of hands that work. I think that's all you need. So there you go. Let's step through it. Step 1, load up. You want to put all the weight in the car that you're going to have when you're using it. For me, that's an air down, gear up system. I'll show you the car. We're going to pull it in real quick, but it's a drawer system. So I've got the drawer system in there. On top of the drawer system, I'm going to have a fridge with a little drop slide. Not quite like that. That's a prototype, but we're going to load that up in there. And it's important to do that because that weighs, 100 pounds. It weighs something. And we want to account for that when we measure heights and weights and all that. So step 1, load it up. Fridge is installed, or at least placed in the back where it will be. Another thing we've done, we brought it into the garage because the floor is level. It's not level in the driveway, it's level here. You want it level. So that takes us past step 1. We're done. Step 2, measure the as found heights. The method that most everybody uses is wheel center to fender, and I'll show you how to do that. You can also use the method that's in the manual. That's method B. I didn't write down the measurements here, but it's in the manual. Basically, you use the distance from the ground up to 2 suspension bolts for the front and rear, and the difference between those bolts relates to the height of the car. It's probably a more accurate way to do that, but it's a little more difficult to do. It requires a little more precision. This is easy, and this gets to the aesthetics of it, which is kind of important, and I think mine actually has a bit of a lean. I think we're leaning down to the right, but we're about to find out. Let's measure. Okay, we're doing our first height measurement. This is the front passenger side, or front right, and you can see we got our tape measure stuck up against the fender, and then we come down, and this is where your visual perspective can kind of skew things, but I'm going to call that 19 3/16 ish. 19 and 3/16. It's not quite 19 and a quarter. That's what I'm gonna go with. So we're gonna mark that. If I go over here, we're on the front right. So 19 and 3/16. This is that's 19 and a half, 3/16. So we're right below 19 and a quarter actually. So I'm gonna mark right about there, just so we have an idea. Now let's go measure the other 4, and then we'll have our heights. Okay, we have our heights. Look at that. We're low everywhere. The center there is roughly what it's supposed to be, apparently, according to others. So we're obviously low. We can notice in the front. So the front left and right is what you can really control. So the noticeable thing here, 19 and a half over here, and less than 19 and a quarter on the right. So right away we know that is too low, and that probably needs to come up. But don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So we found our heights. That's step 2. Step 3. I'm going to make a quick note here before we get much further. Right away, if you're coming here because you have an LX and it won't go into high, or you've got some problem with AHC where it's stuck in low, or it won't go to high, whatever, this is probably your problem. Step number 3. You can skip right here, and you can just assume that's your problem, and you can adjust pressures by just cranking torsion bars up. So there's your little cheat sheet, I guess. If you have AHC and you don't know a whole lot about it, but it won't go into high, your pressures are probably too high, and you need to crank torsion bars. There you go. Done. That simple. To do it detailed, let's move on and cover everything the right way. Okay, we need to disconnect the temp sensor for the reservoir. Don't know why exactly this is required to measure pressures accurately, but it is. So it's that guy in the back right there. That would be the pump power, I believe, and that is, I'm not sure, pressure sensor maybe, but that is our temp connector in the back. 2 wires, smaller connector, against the firewall, at least for the left-hand drive 100 series. Temp connector unplugged. While we're under here, a quick little shout out for the, oh geez, that's my garage door. Hang on. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Battery switch bracket, something I make out of 3D printed carbon fiber and nylon, and super lightweight, fits the Blue Sea switches. I've got it connected to the winch, my accessory battery in the back, and then an off switch. Really neat little device there. Check it out. It's on the website. Alright, starting up TechStream. This is how it looks if you follow the VirtualBox method. Sorry if the camera's moving around. Try to hold that still. This is what's listed on the TechStream in 5 minutes from I Hate Mud. There are a lot of similar methods. They're all kind of like this, though. So we're just going to walk you through. Okay, yeah, there's an update. I don't care. TechStream powered off. Let's power that puppy on. I am not connected yet. So we've got our USB over here. This is plugged in. So the cable is plugged in to the OBD2 port. I'm not sure how much you can see there, but it's plugged in. Okay, we're starting up now. Windows XP, welcome to 1998, or whenever this came out. So we wait for this all to load, and then we're going to start TechStream, and then we'll plug it in. Okay, TechStream's up here. Let's start that. The exact method for getting this to connect is a little bit funky. You're just going to watch what I'm doing. I'm no tech expert, so there's probably somebody that works IT that knows a whole lot more than I do, but we're going to plug this in. We're going to try to plug it in. Hang on. Okay. Okay. First sound. There should be another one if it's recognized by Windows. So we didn't hear anything. We're going to try it again. Unplug. Plug back in. Still nothing. Hang on. We're going to try it again. Nothing. Try it again. we should hear a ka-dung. So, of course, it's the one time that I don't film. Let's try that again. Disconnect. So I don't know why this happens, but it might connect this time. Hang on. Ugh, it knows I'm filming. I'm going to set the phone down just so you can hear the sound. You're going to hear the sound that you should hear. That's the sound. No idea why it does that. So that was 2 minutes of just screwing around. Unplug, plug it in. Unplug, plug it in. Eventually works. No idea why. Maybe somebody can clue us in the comments. Anyway, now it's going to work. I betcha. There it goes. Okay. This is what should happen. I don't know what the deal was there. Okay. LX470 2006. It recognizes it. Okay. If it doesn't, just make sure you select the right thing so it knows what it's connected to. Okay, we're in the exciting part. Okay, you can see all the different systems. Depending on your year, you might see more or less. With an 06, this should have everything. But if you've got an older LX or a non-LX, if you're in a GX or something, you'll probably have a different menu system. Oops. Okay, AHC. That's the one we want. That's why we're here. So we click on that. It's going to load up the system, and then we go over here to Data List. And oil temperature sensor circuit because we unplugged it, so that's fine. Data list. And while it's pulling this up, I'm going to go ahead and switch into low. So we're in high now. Never mind the Christmas tree on my dash. Okay, so we're going down into low. Oh, a door's open. Hang on. Alright, we're cruising down into low. Still going down, still going down. Okay, we're settled into low. If we look at our utility now, you can see pressure, 0. There is no pressure in the system. So now we need to climb back up to neutral. So we're going to hit up. The system's going to work. So it's flashing. And we'll just show you this as the values update. It takes a while. So when it raises, you can't look at the pressure immediately. You need to give it a minute. The refresh rate on this data is poor. So you got to be patient. So it's still flashing. Not quite at neutral yet. Should be any second here. Almost there. Boom, neutral. Okay. But now we wait. That neutral 5.5, that's going to go up. There you go, 6.2. It's probably going to go up again. Now, that it? That it? Okay. So there's our first run. 6.2 in the front, 7.3 in the rear. Let's write that down on our sheet. Okay, we're trying it again. This is round 2. Make sure we got the same values, and then actually we're going to back up and then pull back in and do it again. But all right, so we're in low, go up to N. Gonna watch this, and you can time this too. Another parameter in the system health is how long it takes. But really, you want to do that after you've got it tuned. It doesn't mean a whole lot right now, so we're not going to time it right now. We're not going to worry about that. Just watch these pressure values. 3.5. 6.7. What we're looking at right there, front pressure, rear pressure, that's what we're watching. And we're in N. Almost, hang on. Okay, there you go. We're locked into N. And pressures are There you go, 6.3, 7.4. 6.3, 7.4. I'm going to write those down. Then we're going to pull out of the driveway, pull back in, and maybe I'll actually turn the car around and point forwards. That'll be good to get a kind of median value, because we're pointed upwards just a very slight amount right now, and that can make a difference. So hang on. Okay, we are now pointed the other direction. We're pointed down my driveway now. We're in the garage, so it's pretty flat, but it's a little different. So we're going to go back up to neutral and watch what the pressures do this time. They should be a bit different. A little higher in the front, a little lower in the rear is my guess. Parking, or we're in park, and the parking brake is pulled. And we're in neutral. And there we go. Okay, 6 point. Oh, there you go. There we go. The truth comes out. Okay. 7.0, 7.3. Let's record those. Okay, so this is where we are. We know that our front is somewhere between 6.2, 6.3, and 7.0. So you kind of make a rough average there. That puts us probably close to 6.4, 6.5, something like that. And then the rear is holding pretty steady at 7.2, 7.3, so it's high. It is too high. It is out of spec. So we need to fix that. And you could do that by removing weight, but I don't really want to do that because I like all my stuff. So what that probably means is we need to add spacers because we already have king springs. But we're going to go through that in a minute, so don't let me get too far ahead of myself. There are the pressures. So if you had pressures like this, let's say you just bought the car, and you get pressures like this, your front is fine. And realistically, if you're just buying an LX and nobody's done this before, let's be honest, you're up here. Your pressure's going to be here. Like 9.5 times out of 10, your pressure's way up here. Because nobody does this. Nobody tunes this the way that they're supposed to. Nobody adjusts it or calibrates it. You absolutely have to. Nobody does. So anyway, I've already adjusted it a bunch, and I just kind of guessed. So anyway, that's where we are. In the rear, if you see this, it means you need a spacer. You need to remove weight from the rear, or you need new springs. That's the simple part. The front, you can crank this. You can adjust the torsion bars for free by yourself with nothing more than a laptop and a 30mm socket. You can adjust this number. So this we can move from here all the way down to here. We can move everything there. That's all up to us. No problem. But the rear, we need to change components. Okay, the next step we're going to get into is cross level, and a neat thing we can point out right now before, just ignore the wording right now, but cross level, that means we want the car to sit flat. We don't want it to sit like this or like this. And right now ours is leaning. We can visually see that. And if you look at the height control sensors, it was -0.3 to -0.1. So the car thinks that the right side is low. We measured, and the right side was low. Cool. They agree. So what we need to do, since when we measured, the pressures were kind of on the lower end here, but I'm really a fan of staying as close to this low end spec as you can. So 6.4 is the minimum. I'm going to try and stick to that. So normally, I would say if you're not doing a bunch of trails and you're not really concerned about putting a ton of weight on this, maybe you'd try to shift it further up. But really what I'm going to do is we're going to raise the low side. So that right sensor thinks it's low. We measured it. We think the right is low. I'm going to raise the right. And how this works, you can't raise the vehicle with the torsion bars with AHC. That does not work. Because the height sensors, which we're going to talk about in step 5, the height sensors control where the vehicle is. And I can draw a little diagram for that maybe. But the height control sensors tell the vehicle where to go. And then the pump just makes it happen. And that's part of the beauty of AHC. It knows what height it should be at, and it just goes there. And as long as nothing is broken in the system, it's very reliable, and it'll get there very close. And it'll load level, so you can put 4 people in, a bunch of gear in here, and it's fine. Up to like 1,100 pounds. It's amazing. So the cross leveling that we're doing is just left to right, because the vehicle cannot control left and right. You set left and right with the torsion bars, but the vehicle can only control front and rear. That's why you just have front and rear pressures, because there's a front system and a rear system, essentially, as far as the plumbing at least. So let's go crank a torsion bar. We're going to crank the right torsion bar, and we need to go up by about 1/4 inch. And if I read my directions here, it's about an 1/8 inch correction per turn. So that means, I think, on our right side, we need to go up 2 turns. Okay, you've been stuck listening to me talk for however long it's been now. And now, if I can adjust the light correctly. Okay, here we go. Flash is back. And just for location, there's the front wheel, front door. There's the front door handle. We're just lying under the front door. And right about there is our torsion bar. And you can see where I marked it previously. It's kind of a faint mark now. I'm going to grab a marker, mark it more clearly, and we need to tighten that 2 full turns. It's going to take a bit of work. Okay, we've adjusted our torsion bar 2 turns and went down to low, then back up to neutral, and look where we are. We look even on here. So now we are going to get out and measure them physically and see how we did. Okay, check us out. So I went back and I did the dots on the bottom for the beginning and then the top for the after. So this is after doing our cross level. And check it out. On the left, we didn't move because we just moved this torsion bar. So with the adjustment on that torsion bar, we went up about 1/4 inch. A little more than 1/4 inch, right to about where we want. Exactly the same as the left. So that's good. But check out the rear. In the rear, on the left side, we went up just a little bit. And this could be just a difference between cycling up and down again. But this, look at this. Look at that. From under 20 inches to almost 20 and a half, or I rounded up and called it 20 and a half. Huge difference. Huge difference there. And the car, just visually, looks a whole lot more level. Pretty amazing. Before, you would have thought, you need a rear spacer for the spring in the back. Well, no, you just need to adjust the front torsion bars. So these have a really significant impact on the heights in the rear. So very important to get these correct, and that should bring the rear about level. In this case, it did just perfectly. Now let's go back and let's measure pressures. Okay, here are my after pressures. Front, 5.8. It was 5.9 last time. 7.3 in the rear. So I marked these down. And the front, you can see if we average these out, this is with the nose up, that's the nose down. So our average, we're probably right at 6.4, maybe a hair below. But I'm going to leave it there. Okay, I'm not going to change this. If I was on perfectly flat ground and all these values were a little bit better centered and they were below, I might try to raise the pressure. For most of you, though, most of you watching this, your pressure is going to be way up here. Okay, so this is not where you're probably going to be. You want to adjust these pressures down. I think it's okay to be a little on the low side. It's not okay to be up here. Okay, so that's the problem area. Front is good. But look at our rear. We've got too much weight in the back. Our next step here is height sensors. I'm going to show you what the sensors look like. We do not need to adjust because we are close enough that I'm just going to leave that alone. So we could give ourselves a little sensor lift. I'm not going to do that. We're going to leave ours where they are, but I'm going to show you where they are just in case you want to see them. You're going to shorten the joint to raise or lengthen it to lower. Let's go look at the front. And then the rear is a slider. We'll take a look at that as well. All right, so we're looking at the passenger side and the front now. And that thing right there, that threaded rod with the nut in the center of the rod, that is your, I believe it's called a Heim joint or a Heim joint. I'm not sure. It's H-E-I-M, if I remember right. Anyway, you can move that rod longer or shorter. It's kind of an opposing threads situation there. But basically, you loosen the nuts there, and then you can turn the rod to lengthen or shorten it, and that will move your vehicle height accordingly. That's the front. Let's look at the back. Okay, here we got a good shot of the rear. If I can just stabilize that right there. It's an arm on a little slider. So you just undo the bolt, slide it up and down, and that manipulates your arm for the rear. Okay, adjust pressures. So again, I'm going to leave this alone because my front is good. If your front is up here though, then you're going to need to adjust pressures. And you're going to want to turn the torsion bars 1 turn for every 0.2 megapascal you need to go in pressure. Clockwise lowers your pressure. Rear, replace king springs or add spacers or OEM springs or LC springs. You've got a lot of spring options, tons of options. So I'll think about my options. Maybe I'll do a spacer, maybe I'll do non-AHC springs. I've got the king springs in there now. We'll just play it by ear. We'll see what happens. Okay, here we're going to do another nap time repair that I hope I'm going to be able to finish. We'll see. It's rear coil spring replacement. So I've got AHC on this 06 LX470, and the springs are old, and we've got a little bit of weight in the back now, but we're going to add a whole lot more with a bumper and sliders and an SS1 from air down gear up in the back for cargo and a fridge and all kinds of stuff. So we need to compensate for that with new springs. So it's in low right now. I'm just going to demonstrate the low to high for folks that aren't familiar with that. I'm going to leave it in high for the repair. So it's currently running, it's in low. You can see low. So here we go. We click it twice, click the up, flashing high, it's ready to go. Close the door, and it begins. It's slower going up than it is coming down, and right now it is a whole lot slower than I think it will be eventually because the rear is at a pretty high pressure. The pressure in the rear was about 8.1 if I recall, so neutral pressures are a little on the high side, and we should correct those here. It's still going up, so I think that was just neutral there, and now it's going up quite a bit. And now we're up in high in the back, and the front is right about there, right there. So you can see what difference that is. It's huge. I mean, it's the difference of a lowered 100 series to a 2-inch lifted 100 series. So big span in height, and a pretty cool feature that I'm a big fan of. So let's take care of this and keep our pressures in check, and let's get started. Okay, tools for the job. We need a jack. We need some jack stands because we need to put the frame on jack stands. And we need, it's an impact to get the wheels off with a 21 millimeter socket. And then we've got socket wrench with a 14, a 12, a couple wrenches, ratcheting wrenches, and a torque wrench. I think that's about all we need, but I'll update that as we go. And actually I'm realizing now we do need a 17, so add a 17, just like that. There we go. Okay, 17 millimeter, that's for the lower shock mount. I think we've got everything we need. Now I need to get the car jacked up, so we're going to lift the lift and then get our jack stands and platforms arranged, get the car up in the air, and the idea is to put the chassis or the frame on jack stands first. Then we're going to allow the axle to droop. We want to get as much droop as we can. That's why I started off in high, and we'll jack it up and then let it droop further. We're going to need to disconnect the sway bar, shock mount, and possibly brake lines. Okay, hopefully that came out, but now we've got the car supported just in front of the lower control arms on the frame, and now gotta tackle that too. But now we can undo shock mount right there, lower shock mount, and sway bar. And from that point, I hear sort of mixed things, but I think we can get the springs out. And of course, there are the springs right there. And we've got the yellow king springs that are going to go in. So now the name of the game is undo the fasteners, and then we kind of walk the axle back and forth to get the spring out, new one's in, and we're done. Okay, we've got the shock undone. You can see that mount is free there. We've got the sway bar mount free. That was right there, and now it's dangling down there. So we need to make sure that we don't pull on any lines. So we've got brake line, I think, there, or maybe that's the diff breather. Yeah, that's the diff breather. But brake lines here, brake lines over here. We just need to make sure that we don't do anything with those. So I'm going to lower it real slowly, real easy, and then we'll just keep checking the spring, and as soon as the spring can come loose, we'll pull it out. Okay, so the coil moves a little bit now. I'm going to see if I can set the phone down and videotape for you. Let's see if this works. I'm kind of blind. Hopefully you can see. I think this is just going to pop right out. A little bit of manual compression there. But there we go. Okay, so now I go over here. And there are king springs. So you can kind of see the king springs are actually lower, but the spring rate should be higher. So take a step back here so you can see the height difference. So there you go. The king springs, I think, are the same height, so I'm just going to grab one, throw it in. Okay, piece of cake. There's a car coming, hang on. Okay. Piece of cake. Really easy. The king spring goes in easier than the other one came out. Just make sure you rotate it correctly. There's a sort of indexing point over here on the front. So make sure you get that index correctly, make sure it's seated correctly up top, and this is just fine. So now I'm going to raise the jack a little bit and get that back in place. Then I'll do the other side, and then we'll move on to getting this darn broken stud out. Here's a really good shot of the lower rear control arm. This is the rear end of that, and you can see that bushing is just torn. Just looks terrible. The front one, not too bad, but that one, I mean, my God, that's terrible. So you're gonna feel that driving, I think. In the upper, you can see now that we've got it flexed. You know, the worn rubber really shows its face there. So a ton of cracks there. Those all need to be replaced. Another one there, yeah, nice big crack. Not good. This side doesn't look too bad, actually. Not so bad over there. So I'll prioritize this other side, but yeah, not too good. And then that one, another big crack. Yeah, another big crack. I mean, they're all just toast. It's old rubber. And still kind of hard to see that, but yeah, sure enough, there you go. They are all cracked, they are all toast, they all need to be replaced. Okay, we're over on the passenger side now, and we've got clearance here, but the spring isn't moving, so we're just going to give it a little bit of a pry. There you go. Look at that. And it should come right out. Check gradations. So let's go do this. This is an exciting one. We're going to put the car in high. So actually, I'm going to turn the car off because I want to plug the temp sensor back in. So hang on, let's turn the car off, plug it in, start it again. Okay, so here's our height. This is what we're at in high. And if we look there, if we drew a line, it's kind of hard to do, but if we drew a line, I think we'd put it right about through the mid. There we are. The things we do for YouTube views. Okay. Yeah, look at that fill back up. Look at that. Okay, so if we were to count the gradations here, it's a little hard. I'll try not to vibrate you to death. So the minimum, I think we were right about there. Oops, right about there. So we go up, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know, 10 something, 11. It's kind of hard to tell. More than 10. We are done. I think it took us about an hour total time. not too bad. We've got our heights here. Our heights are close to the center line, good enough for me. We've got as found pressures here, noted those on the bottom, and then our as left, or our final pressures up at the top. What I learned from this is that the rear probably needs extra help. We've got the king springs in there now, no spacers. Probably be good to add a spacer, maybe switch over to the non-AHC springs. So I don't know, I got some research to do there. But the front's looking really good towards the lower end of the spec, and then the rear, of course, we're above. Cross level, we fixed quite a bit of cross level. You can see the before and after. So we fixed our cross level in the front and the back just by doing the torsion bar adjustment. And height sensors, we left those alone. We're okay with the heights as they left, so we're not going to tweak that. And pressures, we didn't need to adjust pressures overall. Our fronts were okay. Rear's a little high again. We're going to address those with new springs, I think. And check the gradations. Our globe check. So we were north of 10. I'm going to say 11 to 13 gradations. And I know that the globes were replaced recently, so that makes sense. So we're in good shape there. Let's go over to my whiteboard, run through one more summary, and then we are done. And now you know how to do AHC. Here are our results. So the height we measured, the heights were okay, some were a little low, but most notably we had a 3/8 inch lean. So we fixed that, but just in the measurement stage we failed that. And then pressure, we were good in the front, high in the rear. Rear was high, 7.3. We want that to be a little lower. The upper end of that spec is 6.7. So we were about half a megapascal high there. So then we went to adjustment. We adjusted the level, turned the torsion bar 2 times on the lower side, and that fixed our 3/8 inch lean. The height issue, there wasn't any. We were okay there. The heights were just fine, especially after the adjustment there. No problem. Pressure. Fronts, great. Rear, we probably need a rear spring swap. We could get away with a spacer that put us right on the edge, but I probably want to be a little bit further down in the pressure range. So I think we're going to do some non-AHC springs, or I don't know. Maybe I'll do some more research and see what I can come up with there. Then we did a globe check, 10 plus gradations. Globes are super healthy. So there is a run through of AHC. If your rear pressure is 7.3, that's not enough to make the system fail. It's just a good long-term maintenance thing to fix that. If you are checking this for the first time, you're probably going to see pressures like 8 in the front and rear, and that's terrible. So you got to fix that. But this is more of just a maintenance item that I ran through for your benefit, so you can see what it looks like when you run through a check and adjustment. There it is, AHC. Don't be scared. It's an awesome system. Enjoy it, maintain it. It'll last a long time. And with that, we are done. Moving on to the next chapter in the Cypress build. Stay tuned.